Thank you. Thank you, Saina. Namaste, everyone. Just checking you can hear me okay? Good. So, one of the repeated themes that comes up in our life as on the pathway to awakening is how willing we are to let go of our stories, the stories that we tell ourselves. And it's been particularly relevant this week. And perhaps we could say that the journey to awakening is perfecting that willingness to reach a point where, and that's just my interpretation of it, it's not an absolute thing, and there are many interpretations of it, but to reach a point perhaps where our willingness is perfected in terms of whatever story I catch myself telling myself or someone else, I have a willingness within me to let that go because I've seen how much it's costing me. And even if I can't let that go right now, I really want to let that go, and I can acknowledge that willingness. So perfect willingness was perhaps one of the hardest things for me to really develop. The point where the thrill, the buzz, the momentary fix of being a someone was overpowered. It was not as valuable. It's not as welcomed as the revelation of what we truly are. And that in that moment when there seems to be a choice, that the choice seems to go to the truth rather than the same old story. And I'm sure you've experienced moments where you know the story you're telling yourself isn't true, but it still seems to have some familiarity. It still seems to have some power. It still seems to have some kind of allure to it, something that seems to automatically pull the attention. And if we ask ourselves 10 minutes later, you know, what would we choose? Perhaps the answer would be different. But in that moment, attention goes to this story, whatever it is that we're telling ourselves. And usually the stories that we hold on to most tenaciously, and the beliefs, assumptions, stories, I'm kind of using all those three words together, meaning the same thing, illusion, basically. All the things that we think about ourselves and others, the stories that we hold on to most are the ones about awakening itself. So over and over again, I see this when I'm talking to people, and I saw it within myself, and still every now and again something will pop up for me to look at. But if we can look at what those stories are and compare them to the truth, each time we do that, we're loosening the hold of this story. We're perfecting the willingness in that moment, like some kind of sword or axe that we're sharpening. And each time we ask if that story is true, it's going to be that much harder to believe the next time around, or maybe even impossible to believe next time around. And on the other side, that's one aspect of the work we do in a group like this. But on the other side of that is a deeper and clearer seeing of what we actually are. Because that seeing of what we actually are is going to show you in that moment that none of our stories are true. Nothing that we've ever thought about ourselves or anyone else is ultimately true, or anything else. Nothing we've really thought about the world, anyone that we interact with, our close family, friends, all of that is ultimately, in the absolute truth, it's untrue. Of course, that kind of relative knowledge is helpful to navigate around the world, but in terms of awakening, It's really too costly to keep holding on to these. So let's look at both of these aspects. I'd like to do that, to spend some time looking at that. Let's start by looking at what we actually are compared to what we think we are. The common human myth, especially when we're in the awakening process journey, is that we are getting closer to this absolute state, this condition, this enlightenment or awakening or something like that. That each time we sit in a class like this, or a satsang, or read a book, or do some meditation, we're actually a little bit closer than we were before we did that. And at some point, we're going to reach an end point where we're free. And is that really what the truth is? Well, if we stop right now and actually look at, and we can all do this, actually stop and look at what you actually are. If for a moment you don't count your body or your thoughts or your emotions in your self-definition, if you don't reference those for what you know yourself to be, because those are going to go, they're only temporary. There's nothing wrong with them. It's beautiful to have a body and emotions and thoughts. But what are you? What else is left when you don't count those? When you take a moment to really look at what's left. I mean, you can imagine just for a moment what's left when your body is absent, when your thoughts have stopped, and when emotions and experiencing have stopped. And when I did this the first time, and I know I've spoken about this before, but it's worthwhile saying again, what I found was this nothingness, this emptiness, this insubstantiality, this kind of empty space in which the body's appearing in right now, and the thoughts are coming and going in. So if my body was absent right now, my thoughts, my experiences, there'd be this empty chair here, and there'd be the space in which the chair is appearing and all of that. Everything else in this room, the room itself and the space in which the room's appearing, would still be right here. And it hit me when I actually looked that there wasn't anyone living in this body. There was no separate entity called Helen that I could find anywhere. If you want to look right now and just confirm, if you can look inside, see if you can find what you are, see if you can find where you are. And all I found was this somethingness, this nothingness that wasn't a thing. It certainly wasn't a me that I thought I was going to find. It didn't have anything at all I could grab onto. It didn't have anything that I could describe. It was so totally different to what I had expected to find, to what I thought my entire life that I actually was. And if you discovered that nothingness, it can be very, very shocking. It's not a thing yet. And it's also showing up as all of these. To find that you're not a someone, to find that you are something very, very different, not even a thing. Formless, insubstantial intelligence, pure sentience before it takes any form. That's quite different, isn't it? That's quite shocking at first. Frightening and also exciting it was for me. But I knew in seeing that I turned a corner, because I couldn't at all go back and forget that. I could never quite forget that. And the next thing that became stunningly clear when I saw this again and again, when I dared to look again after a couple of weeks, and there was still this empty nothingness, a couple of weeks or months maybe, and curiosity got the better of the fear. There was still this empty nothingness. And it began to become clear that that is what I'd always been, and that it wasn't just inert space, empty space. It was something very different. It knew what was happening to everything that was appearing inside it. So this version of me, excuse me, this version of me that didn't have any shape at all, was everywhere. This began to really become clearer. If it doesn't have an edge, if it's not a someone, if it's insubstantial like the air, where does it reach to? And as I began to look like this, I realized it doesn't stop. I don't stop anywhere. In all directions, from wherever I start as a reference point, I am there and everywhere. Not at all the someone that I thought myself to be. And you've probably come across very similar revelation if you've done this. After a while of seeing this awakeness, this intelligence, this sentience that you really are, it begins to have this very powerful effect upon you, that it loosens your ability to believe anything, begins to drive a wedge, a gap between you and your thoughts. It begins to show you that none of the stories you've told yourself about yourself have ever been so. How different is your awakening journey when you realize that you are this awakeness already. That a pure awakeness is looking through your eyes and listening through your ears right now, not a me, not a someone, but pure awakeness right now, already listening to this. As unlikely and as unlikely as that may seem to you right now, that is the truth. The whole entirety of the cosmos is looking through your eyes right now and listening through your ears. The everywhereness, the para-Brahman, the pure awareness, the self, the unborn intelligence, whatever you want to call it, is already looking through your eyes. It has just come to think of itself as a me, as someone. And it's done that for so long. When it can think about itself, when it takes the shape of a human being, it gets all kinds of crazy ideas about itself. It begins to believe that it is limited and time-bound and separate and a form, and that it appeared at some arbitrary moment, began at some arbitrary moment in time, and at some other arbitrary moment it will end. And then it believes that it's on this journey to awakening, and it believes that it's seeing clearer and clearer every day. It believes it's getting closer to becoming the awakeness. It believes that if it just lets go of one more karmic pattern, it will be free. It believes that if it just gets better at meditation, or understand what this teaching says when it reads this book, or whatever it believes. These are the subtle stories that we are most protective of inside ourselves. I'd ask you for a moment just to look at what the subtle stories are for you right now. What is the infinite cosmic awakeness telling itself right now, appearing as you? Is it saying that you're not awakened already, that you're not already the awakeness? Is it saying there's a difference between you and me? Is it saying that I've achieved something that you haven't, or something like that? Are you telling yourself that if you just meditated more often or more frequently, or got deeper, or let go of this karmic pattern, or transcended that emotion, or if you just allowed in more abundance, or if you just saw clearer what you actually are, then finally you would be the awakeness, the infinite intelligence? And I just need to remind you again that it isn't a someone. It's never been a someone looking through your eyes. You have never been a separate entity. You never separated from this infinite intelligence, cosmic intelligence. It just began to believe the thoughts it was having, and then began to have the experience that goes along with those thoughts. So this willingness that we were speaking about before, it gets a lot easier to perfect that willingness when you see that there is something vast, timeless, already perfect, already completely awake and incapable of being asleep, looking through your eyes right now. Cosmic, infinite awakeness, doing the dishes, picking up the kids from school, going to work, going to bed, waking up in the morning, having an argument with someone. Cosmic, infinite awakeness, sitting down to meditate so that it can realize what it actually is. This may sound really bizarre, cosmic, infinite awakeness, taking a shower, or washing the car, or cleaning the house, doing mundane tasks. That's what's happening already. And this is clearer and clearer without our stories. The stories that we really have an intense loyalty towards the end of this dream of being someone, that I'm almost there, that I'm never going to get there, that I can't get there until I master this particular thing on the pathway, this skill, this practice, or I understand what that teacher's saying, or I put in more meditation hours. Do you realize that it's the infinite cosmic awakeness, thinking it's struggling to wake up and see itself clearly? It is the everywhereness of the universe, the entirety of the universe, looking through your eyes right now, hearing these words and speaking these words. There isn't any separation at all, could never be. It is not the sum of its parts. It doesn't have parts. It is everywhere at all times. You are everywhere at all times. And you just come to think of yourself as being separate from the whole, but that doesn't mean it was ever so. When I really got this, began to get this on a deeper level, that the infinite pure awareness is doing the dishes, not a me, that the cosmic intelligence is, picking up the kids from school or doing food shopping. It really began to hit home, and I began to remind myself, this is cosmic intelligence doing this. This is the infinite self, not a me. And it began to replace all of my stories. What stories are you holding on to now? Are you holding on as you're listening to a story that you have to get something out of what I'm saying here to reach something that you weren't at before we started this session, or to deepen in something, or to close a gap between me and you, or to have the same experience I'm having, or whatever story it is? What is the reason that you aren't already this intelligent sentience, this awakeness that never sleeps, watches the body sleep, watches the body drive, watches the body clean, walk, talk, all of that? So when thoughts are no longer in the way, when it's not looking through thoughts, stories, it's free. It's already free. It just thinks it's trapped. You've never actually been trapped. Just the belief that you are is enough to create that experience endlessly. Illusion spinning out infinitely. So if you drop your stories right now, if you want to, there's an invitation here to drop them completely. Just free of any and all narrative inside for a moment. It doesn't mean the narration has to stop. It's just, what is it like to experience myself without those, without referencing those? All my usual thoughts, all my ways of thinking about myself, especially the way you think about yourself in a class like this, in a group like this, on a pathway like this. And this is really, really immediate. Who am I without my stories? Especially my most prized spiritual stories. I'm seeing clearer every day. I'm getting deeper. Those are experiences that are happening to the mind and body, not to you. Mind and body deepens, has epiphanies, feels ever more peace. Doesn't change what you are already. It's just reflecting clearer and clearer each day through the mind and body. So what obstacles remain for you? And do they apply to the infinite awake intelligence? If it is already what's looking through your eyes, you might as well admit that inside your heart and see what that feels like. Resisting the temptation, the seductive pull of putting one more thing in front of yourself before you are officially awake. You cannot wake up to the truth. You can only come to see that you've always been that. Never, ever at all a human being. You have at no point been born or died. You've never been a human being. You are the infinite cosmic intelligence looking like a human being, experiencing as if it was a human being caught up in thoughts. And just like a dream that's interesting at nighttime when you go to bed, sometimes that last bit of the dream is the bit that you remember longest when you wake up. Whether it was a really good dream and you were having such a nice time in the dream that you did not want to wake up, or whether it was a really terrible nightmare, just full of horrible monsters and scary things, you can wait to wake up. That's the bit you remember and hold on to, even though it's a dream. And you can go on creating experiences infinitely. Experiences of getting closer, of being almost there. Experiences of transcending obstacles. Did you know that every time you think you're not already this completely, you create some other obstacle to overcome without realizing? Much easier to recognize and accept and release any limitation, that I am already the universe looking out through a finite form. But that which is looking through the eyes is not limited at all. That which is hearing these words is not limited at all. The body's limited, but the one listening through it isn't. And we can check again. What can you find about you with a certainty? Can you prove the existence of this separate me? And I couldn't, and I never have. Every single time I've looked, there's been nothing but infinite consciousness. It took me a while to recognize that consciousness must be infinite, but I never found a separate being ever. It seemed to be there, some limited version of me. When I really looked beyond the seems to be, it was absent completely. There was just this vast openness that felt already free. Even before the idea of liberation, it's already here. You are already free. Just this idea that I forgot what I am and now I'm remembering. What if that is the dream right there? It's taken me a while to remember clearly what I am, because I also forgot what I am. Has that happened to you? Or has that happened to your mind? It's thought actually that's on the awakening journey. It's not us. The infinite consciousness is awakeness, intelligence. I'm calling it lots of names. I'm calling it lots of different names. Is already free like the sky. There's no way for the sky to become more sky-like, is there? It just is already. Consciousness is consciousness. No matter what shape an experience is turning itself into, that experience is still made of the same consciousness. And no matter how long, eons, how many bodies have come and gone, whilst the infinite consciousness dreamt itself to be a someone, it never actually was, ever. And if you let that hit you in a moment of willingness, or many moments of willingness, it will undo all of your stories at once. There isn't anything I can say about myself that's true, except that I am here. That's the only thing. Everything else is a work of fiction that I've told myself. And because I am infinite intelligence, when I tell myself a story comes to life in and as my experience, my life. We've been living inside these stories for so long that we often don't know how to be without them, and we keep spinning out these ever finer, ever more subtle stories. So now is a good moment to kind of let go of stories completely and see what that feels like. When there's no narrative for you, no signpost, no direction, nothing that you're referencing at all, no history, no future, no progression towards awakening, no awakening or no enlightenment or unenlightenment. No reference point at all. Just pure intelligence. Try that out if you want to, see how that feels. Freedom, looking through your eyes and listening through your ears already, tasting with your tongue, experiencing what it feels like to have this form and to move around, interact. Total and utter freedom already as the only state, the only option. Liberation is already what you are, nirvana. Everything else is a dream. The whole struggle to come back to clarity is watched from clarity already. When that hits you, impacts you in your heart, these stories have nowhere to cling to. You know, that I'm not quite ready yet for awakening, or I don't deserve it yet, or it's not going to happen for me. Whatever story you've been telling yourself. So let's just take a moment to just sit without any stories if you want to. It would be nice. See if you can allow yourself to just not have any direction or purpose for a moment. Be directionless. Already free and open, light. Nothing at all that your body and mind could achieve that would make you any more this than you already are. Nothing that could go wrong with your life that would make you any less this than you already are. Not referencing those at all in terms of what you already are. How does that freedom feel? The whole cosmos is listening through your ears. The whole universe is hearing this, not to someone. You can't get any freer than you already are. And if you pick up stories tomorrow or later today, your body will tell you, and you can release those again, just like this. No stories can stick to this infinite intelligence anyway. Just to experience like this, just to feel what it's like to be free already, empty of journey and progress, timeless wisdom already, an uncluttered consciousness, experiencing itself as a human being, not a human being moving towards becoming the consciousness. And life is so much more fun without the stories. We've had enough stories. We're infinite storytellers. That you're listening to these words right now because you're tired of that. You're tired of always taking the shape of the next story that you're telling yourself. Weaving out stories in front of you, interconnecting stories. So they join together into this big tangled mess of a life and suffering. And there's never going to be a better moment than right now to stop that. At first you'll stop, you'll put some stories down and you'll pick them up again, and it's okay. Everyone does. Everyone does. Doesn't mean anything's going wrong. It just means that there's a habit still in effect. But every single moment you recognize that you're telling yourself a story about yourself. You're giving yourself a reference point again. You have an opportunity to release it. I'd rather experience myself when I don't know anything about anyone or anything. My mind knows lots of things. It's an endless reference library of thoughts. But I don't have to pick that up. I can experience myself empty and free. Already peaceful. And you can simply say no thank you the next time a story is suggested. You know, this is nice sitting here, but it's not going to last. Or at some point later, I'll forget this. Or I can't stay like this. I can't be already free and still go to work. I'm never going to allow in the abundance I want unless I hold on to my story. Whatever you're telling yourself, whatever the next thing is. Just some time each day where you sit without your stories, without any baggage at all. Mind suggests stories all the time. And certain stories are very appealing. But even if you pick them up, you can just put them down again. Whether that's 2 seconds, 2 minutes, 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks after you pick it up. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. For that time, I was holding on to a story and experiencing it. Now I'm going to release it and come back to my already so-ness, my freedom that's already here. I've never been a someone. What's looking back at you then when you look in the bathroom mirror on a morning as you brush your teeth? Who's brushing their teeth? This beautiful mystery that is you is looking at you. The universe is celebrating itself as you. Isn't that amazing? Wondrous, powerful, infinite presence showing up as you already. No more time or steps needed to be this infinite presence, just already are. Just sometimes we need a reminder of this, don't we? To just keep coming back to this, to increase that willingness. Every time we taste our essential nature like this, it's harder and harder to go back to illusion. Quicker and quicker before we come out of it again. I'm not going to waste time blaming myself for picking up a story, I'm just going to drop it. Because that's the most delicious thing to do right now. What's it like to go to work like this? To pick up the kids like this? To eat a meal? To go on a vacation? What's it like to read a book like this? Or meditate like this? Or sit with a friend? What's your human experience like from here? Where everything you see, taste, touch, experience, everyone is this infinite awakeness already, disguised as many different shapes and forms. And as most human beings, it's absolutely convinced it's not at all the infinite awakeness. How does it feel to be free already? I'm never going to tell you that there's anything else you have to do to wake up. Everything that every teaching is pointing at are all ways to bring you to this experience here. All ways to simply step away from a story. Wow, I don't know where that time went. I did want to save some time for questions, or if anybody wanted to share anything. So if you've had a challenge, or you've overcome something, or you're struggling right now, or just want to say hi, I'll throw the mic open to anyone. Hope you enjoyed that taste of freedom. Does anyone have anything they would like some help with or to discuss? Sergio? Can you hear us? Are you still muted? Yep.
I can't hear him and he was unmuted.
Okay. Maybe we're having some technical trouble there. Try again, Sergio. Yeah, we are unable to hear you, sorry. Nope. Okay, maybe we'll have to do that next time. Sorry, Sergio, for some reason we can't hear you. Okay. Anyone else like to share anything or ask anything? Feel free to just speak up if there's anything you want to say. Everyone is chilled out then in the freedom experience, hopefully.
Helen, can you hear me?
Yay, now we can hear you.
Yeah. Thank
Wonderful.
you. Thank you. Sorry, not very good connection here where I am at work.
Okay, it's no
But
problem.
thank you. Just to be brief, I know this suits very much through the experience that I'm going through with, like, my mom is having health issues that are happening to her body, like, more and more. And it seems like there's, I don't want to say it, but, you know, like if the body is coming to an end, which,
Mhm.
so I have this debate of how to let go, how to be just the emptiness, the silence in an issue or event of this sort.
It's a difficult experience, isn't it?
Yes.
But how would the emptiness deal with it? Would it say that you have to be one way or another through this process? Would it say that you should only be the emptiness?
Yeah. Well, I guess not. I just.
Yeah. One of the strangest things that ever happened to me was some moment where I had to put down my stories about grieving, you know, that more specifically how that would be through awakening, what it would look like after awakening. And that it would, I had some story that there won't be any emotion or anything like that afterwards, after awakening. And it really wasn't like that. It was kind of both experiences. There was a human being that was grieving, and there was the emptiness in which nothing at all was wrong or could ever be. And the authenticity to allow that in its fullness, whatever that is in any moment for you. So could you try to go through this with no ideas about what it should look like or how you should handle this?
Okay, that helps. Yeah, it's just that I feel like a lot of resistance in this area of the body, in the heart. Like if I wanted to change the course of the things that appear to be happening.
Yeah. And, you know, there's things that we have to go through that are not going to be pleasant at all. And this is one of those, of course. But you can go through even this, you know, feeling peace if you're not telling yourself a story. And, you know, here the story is that I should be this way or this way. This is how I should handle this. And life gives us experiences where it shows us that sometimes there's no way to handle something. You just have to go through it. And it teaches us a freedom in that when I stop trying to control this or be a certain way, experience it a certain way, when I put down my strategies about how I'm going to move through this, then it's easier to progress through it.
Thank you.
Feels kinder to yourself as well, doesn't it? To just, you know, if you are a son that's really struggling in one moment, can you be that? And if you feel more like the emptiness in the next moment, can you be that too?
Right. I guess I just wanted to be, like you just said at the beginning, the emptiness or the silence. And yes, sometimes this body cannot be that. You know, this body wants to cry.
The emptiness is also showing up as a son, feeling a lot of emotion and going through a very difficult time. And if we can honor that too, I'm also appearing as this. This is what I'm experiencing right now in my life. And that we don't have to try to be one or the other, because they're not really different. And human life is sometimes difficult, very, very difficult, isn't it? Human experience. But there'll still be peace there if you're not trying to be one way or the other, no matter what
Right.
happens. Yeah. And if you're grieving, see if you can grieve. If you're worried, be worried. If you're angry, be angry. You know, whatever happens, there's an authenticity of the emptiness in there. This is what is right now for me. This is it here.
Okay. Thank you.
Much love to you. Sending lots of love to you and to your mom.
Thank you again. Thanks.
Very brave. We do have some time left if anybody would like to ask or share a question or an observation, or you've had an epiphany. Do you see a favorite story that you hold on to about awakening? You might have seen one through this session. And the favorite story we all have, that I'm not there yet. That one that we all hold on to. We have 100 reasons why to justify that story. Okay, let's just take a few moments then before we finish, just to sit quietly. It'd be a nice way to finish the session, just to sit without stories for a few moments. And if you pick up a story again, it's okay. Just drop it when you notice. What is your experience like without a story? very much for being with me tonight. Thank you for your presence, your love. Thanks, Saina.